We can give an individual access to the internet and a device, but if they don't have the skills to connect the two, or even once it's connected, they don't kind of have that next step, it's it can be all for nothing at times, and we really want to try to avoid that. One of the things that NDIA, the National Digital Inclusion Alliance that I mentioned before, has really solidified across the board is not only the model for Digital Navigator, which we all came up with together, but also the four-legged stool, which really is the backbone of how you know you're in digital inclusion. So the four-legged stool refers to, this is all about access. So access to devices. Devices is the first leg of the stool, and it's not just any device, but an appropriate and affordable device. And with that, of course, you need access to the internet, not just any internet, but high speed internet that's appropriate for the tasks that you are trying to complete, and reliable internet that you can afford. The third leg of the stool is digital skills. That is our bread and butter at ASC3. So once you've got the computer, you've got the internet, you still got to know how to do what you need to do. And the fourth leg is tech support, because even if you know what to do, if you can't do it because your computer is broken or you don't know why it's not functioning properly, then we're still sort of at a stagnant place, which is something that we're trying to get out of. So there are lots of different reasons why people have difficulty accessing these things. There are geographical barriers. I simply can't get there. There are, as we know, technological barriers, because it's almost like that situation where like you lose your birth certificate and your social security card. So it's like you got to have something to get something. So you got to you need help. Like for people in that situation need assistance to kind of connect those dots. So we've got geographical issues, of course, we've got financial barriers, knowledge barriers, and then physical barriers, just looping back around to those who just simply can't leave or have transportation issues. And then there's also the issue of just follow up. So to get through this process of I don't have anything to I have the computer and internet and skills and tech support, it it just takes a lot. So having digital navigators can add some accountability to that process, so that the burden is not on the client to just follow up and call again and ask again and find the place and find the number and where's that sticky note that I wrote down. The digital navigator gives a central location where they can hand hold these people all the way through the process until they get where they need to be. And then we're still available after the fact.
Definitely.
Okay. There's also, and you identified a number of needs in the four-pronged approach. There's that access to equipment. And of course, some of us have computers that have virtually aged out. I mean, the processors are old, the RAM is not sufficient. Folks have computers that are running 1 or 2 gigabytes of RAM, and we're in a 32 gigabyte RAM world right now, so your computer runs slow. Can you talk about possible programs or things that exist to give people an opportunity to get access to equipment that they can use?
Sure. There's a few ways. So our first line of defense are is PCs for People and RAT3. Those are our two local refurbishers that get in units by the thousands. So they've got a team of people in a giant warehouse where if you qualify, and these are the same qualifications for ACP, which is 200% or lower of the federal poverty guideline. If you qualify, you could get possibly a free computer, not always free, but I've seen them have $30 options, $70 options, $100 options, and these are computers that would normally cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. They may not have come out this year, but definitely within the last five. So it could, if nothing else, get you to the next level, if that makes sense. And then, of course, the DNs, some, of course, have more knowledge in this area than others. But if you want to go the retail route or just the used PC route and just kind of hack it, not necessarily on your own, but in the marketplace, there are, of course, specifications and price ranges that you can sort of match together to see what fits your budget and how you can get the most value from that budget.
Okay. And of course, there's probably also what you use the computer for, and that dictates how much it should cost you to get a computer. Like, you may not need to have a high powered computer if you just want to read your emails and do things like that, or maybe look at YouTube or Facebook or whatnot. But if you are a gamer, or if you are a graphic designer, or if you're a filmmaker, then obviously you're going to need more for your computer. Anthony, could you talk about what a reasonable budget would be for someone who wants to get started with, being able to get online? And you could also factor in those programs that Gina just referred to, uh, the PCs for People, or that organization or other organizations. Just give us a basic idea of what it would cost someone if they were starting from scratch.
If you're starting from scratch and if you're just looking to get online access and possibly watch a few YouTube videos and you're not worried about the high fidelity or the HD or the 4K of it, um, you can get started for around $100 with a Chromebook. But if you're talking about something that has RAM in it or is going to run the videos online and has the internet speed is also a factor as well. So you want to factor in your internet, your ISP speed as well. But as far as the computer goes, you're looking around $300 and you could have an active system. Now, when you're talking about the graphic design and the media production and the things of that nature, you can get a machine that's going to run you 5 to 12 grand. I know Mac has a machine that is overpriced, but
The
it
Mac
is
Pro, the new Mac Pro.
not the new one, the older one, the modular one. It's a little bit overpriced, but I know a lot of people swear by it. But there's really a range, everything from, I can say, an entry level of $100 up to five figures to get into them. It's all about what you really need. And again, that's part of my job, being there to help that individual with what they need. I find a lot of people have these tangible skills and don't know how to get those skills to translate over to a machine or to a computer, and again, even monetize it. So once we can figure out how to take a lot of people's physical skills and get them to transfer over into a machine, the world is at your fingertips. It's really a big sandbox for you to play in. So
Yeah. Yeah, there are also some choices that you can make depending on what your needs are. I mean, you can have a laptop, or you could have a desktop, just depending on how portable you need to be. And then there's that overpriced that you talked about. I mean, when you mentioned that high priced computer, Gina was thinking about that Apple MacBook Pro, and I'm imagining that she probably has the latest and the greatest, so she was salivating at the thought of having that $5,000 computer.
I got a MacBook Pro too, but they had a specific Mac Pro cabinet that yeah, it's
Yeah.
ungodly.
Like the MacBook, like I spent like $2,400 on my computer. And I
Right.
have no regrets. I feel like I got a good value because of what I'm going to be using it for and how long I know it's going to last. And I'm paying $100 a year in case I drop it because that's how much I need it. And it will pay for itself.
So
But
my personal machine is a $1,300 MacBook Pro. So again, Gina does a little bit more in the media realm than I do. Mine's a little bit more focused, so I could get away with it. But it's all about what your skill set is and what your usage is for your machine. So if you know it's something that you want to use for a business purpose, there's no reason to be cheap with it. Get the machine that's going to work and is going to be the most economical at the same time. It's all about getting the best value. So
right.
again, doing your time versus price ratios and all your conversions like that to figure out what's going to be your best value for the venture that you're set out for. Again, like I was saying before, the person who just wants to surf YouTube is going to be totally different from the person who wants to start the next media company. So,
Yeah. Well, the other thing, and I have a MacBook Pro myself. I'm probably on my fifth MacBook. Um, but then it's just that whole proprietary nature of Apple. You know, you have to buy everything Apple for Apple. You know, on the other side of things, you can get some generic stuff that might work or may not work. But to your point, it's definitely worth it to have that equipment. I know my saying is once you go Mac, you never go back. So when I have to use a Microsoft computer, it's like, oh, what am I doing here? How can I get there? Because it's just not quite as intuitive, I think, that the other products as Macs are. With the Mac, you know, it's so instinctive, it's intuitive. You know, you can just move the cursor around and kind of figure things out. Then it's just my personal experience. But when I use the Microsoft products, I gotta use a manual. I gotta pull up a YouTube video to figure out how to do the simplest
That's a
thing.
good point. So like even before I started at Ashbury, within my own business, I was starting to notice who found what to be difficult. And it seems like, of course, with Mac, if you've got a person who's never used a computer in life, then Mac is generally a better choice, or at least an easier learning curve. But most people have used some kind of computer, and 9 times out of 10, it was Windows. So if you get your brain in Windows mode, it can be a transition to go over to Mac. I'm still a Mac person. I can't stand Windows, but I understand why it's necessary at times. But
Yeah,
like Anthony was saying, that giant Mac. Now, when he say Mac Pro, he's not talking about a laptop. It's like
no.
either a floor model or a desk model desktop, and those things really get up
yes. Okay. Well, maybe after I get the second million, I'll get one of them high price computers.
there.
But right now, I'm gonna stick with my little MacBook Pro here. I think I got mine for $1,200 or $1,300, Gina.
Hmm.
And I think it has a terabyte hard drive on it, and I think it's running 16 gigs of RAM. So it does what it needs to do. Now we're
Hmm.
using all these terms, and the folks out there listening, they may not have a clue about RAM. They may not know what a hard drive is. Maybe we should give them a little short course. Tony, what do you think?
Um, sure. I don't know where this. It's like second nature, so I don't know where the starting point would be.
So, in one of my classes recently, we
24 kilobytes in
I'll
a
go ahead.
megabyte, 1024 megabytes in a gigabyte.
The
Yeah,
Might be able
I
to
had a
answer
class
that.
at
go ahead, Gina.
CMHA recently, and we kind of I was substituting. So they had some classes I wasn't sure exactly how much they had learned and was trying to feel it out. And what we ended up doing was just pulling up a picture of a desktop computer opened and just pointing out this is the fan, this is the power supply. So like every computer has the same parts essentially. It's just a matter of the capacity and robustness of those components. All right. Every computer needs a screen, every computer needs a keyboard, every computer needs a mouse. Most of the viewers and listeners probably know what those things are. But then inside, you've got the hard drive. Hard drive is where you store information. And then you have RAM, which is an acronym. It stands for Random Access Memory. It's storage, but it's not for your files. It's for what they call working memory. Kind of
So,
like in your brain, you have a short term memory. So it's just on what you're doing right now. So it determines how many things you can do at once and how fast you can do them. That's what RAM is. So Vince, when you're talking about we used to only need 1 gigabyte of RAM and now we need 8, 16, 32 gigabytes of RAM. In this situation, gigabytes, it's not necessarily so important that you understand what the gigabytes are, but just that you understand that the more RAM you have, the better. the more things that you can do at once. And if you think back to like the 90s when computers had big butts and all of that, the numbers were a lot smaller. You could fit a lot less on it. You could do a lot less at once. And over time, of course, everything gets bigger and cheaper, which is great, but it moves fast and you just have to keep up with that. So that's what's going on with RAM and hard drives and stuff like that.
Another factor is antivirus and other kinds of protections, VPNs. Talk about how important it is to have some type of antivirus software running on your computer.
Well, I would like to circle back to Mac because this is, if you say this is your fifth MacBook, this is probably my third MacBook. I have never had a virus on my Mac and I've never had to add additional protection. And that is part of the beauty of having that proprietary system, meaning that they try to keep everything in a vacuum as much as possible so that the bad things can't get in. I won't say it's impossible. My dad had back in like the early 2000s, like maybe 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10. My dad and I both had the plastic white MacBooks. And back in those days, those millennials and Gen Xers will remember we had LimeWire, and the Mac version was FrostWire. And those were sites like, I don't know if y'all remember Napster got shut down for, you know, pirating. So basically, peer to peer music and media sharing. So when you do things that are risky, there's always a higher risk of getting a virus. And my dad's white MacBook did get a virus. So that wasn't great. But when you're just doing normal things on the internet, when you have a PC, you always want to make sure that you get some sort of antivirus protection. I would go out and read reviews or even ask someone in Micro Center or Best Buy or someone who you know is in tech their opinion currently on the softwares that are out, because things do change. Norton and McAfee are probably the two most popular antivirus softwares, and I hate them both. And I know Tony does too. They take up a lot of space. They are not necessarily effective, and they're overpriced. Services like Malwarebytes, AVG, Avast, WebRoot, Trend Micro, Titanium, just to name several, are all good, solid, affordable antiviruses that I've used in the past. Now, Chromebooks, just like Apple computers, don't really need antivirus software because they work in a closed system like Apple.
Okay, that's good information to know, especially in light of the fact that Chromebooks are a lot more accessible based on the low price of them. So, just a word to the wise. We just have a few minutes left in the program. So, for the benefit of those who weren't with us when we started, Gina, you want to tell folks how they can connect with ASC3 and also the fact that you have a number of campuses, and I'm sure that they can access that information on the internet. But tell us more about connecting with ASC3, contributing to the cause, and just the overall look of having campuses in different locations.
Sure, absolutely. So our main campus location address is 11011 Ashbury Avenue in the city of Cleveland, 44106. And if you want to call us directly, you can reach any of our campus locations by calling 216-421-2305. And that's to reach Ashbury directly. Now, if you are a community member and you just have a general tech question, or you want to know how to get a computer or ACP, or you're just kind of starting to feel things out, or maybe you don't live close to Ashbury and you still are looking for those type of services, we have a hotline for our Greater Cleveland Digital Navigator group that we all monitor. There's 10 organizations that all share responsibility in monitoring this hotline. That number is 216-307-6990. That's our Greater Cleveland Digital Navigator hotline.
Okay. And you also mentioned that there are several campuses. When I was at the website, it was like
Mhm.
maybe 18 or so, maybe 25. I,
Mhm. Yeah.
I can't remember the number, but there are other places folks can go.
Absolutely. So we do our classes in 8-week sessions. Generally, we do some standalone workshops and some other programs. Our bread and butter are these 8-week basic digital skills courses. And we do those at our main campus. We just opened up a brand new Westside campus. We had our ribbon cutting just last week. That's 9926 Lorraine Avenue on the west side, on the corner of West 100th. But all of those other locations have been our satellite training locations. So we have done pretty much from the east to the west, even over southeast in the Lee and Harvard area, several CMHA housing locations. Um, we have Silver Connections, which is basically a senior activity center, and other sort of similar interest locations that have their own community that we will then go in and teach. And I think we're up to 28 or 29 training locations historically.
Okay. And you also mentioned, I think, in a previous conversation about something that's going to happen in September. You have a new program that's going to start. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so right now we are finishing up our oh my gosh, my brain. Our fall session of classes. So we have our 8 weeks and we'll do a few of those sessions. We have a break usually for the winter holiday, and right now we're about to have our break for summer during the first week of August. So we will be starting up classes at our satellite locations and our main campus locations and our west side locations in September.
Okay. So if you're out there, you're listening or you're viewing right now, you'll be able to take advantage of a new session and you can learn what you need to learn about getting on the web. And maybe you can be courageous and do some online banking or something like that. You know, I will say, Gina, that despite all the great things that we said about Apple, one of my MacBook Pros actually crashed, and
Oh no.
I was not able to recover my data from the hard drive. I took it to a few different places, and I got poetry that I've written. I got music on there. I've got things. As a matter of fact, I had a wallet. I had a crypto wallet that had a lot of XRP on it. I'm still, uh,
Do you still have the drive?
I still have the drive. So if you can perform a miracle, I would definitely welcome
I
that.
I I
We
might be
got
able
to
to send
run.
you a resource because I have experienced a similar hard drive loss. It was an external drive. I still
Mhm.
have it. I've had it for years. It's dead,
Okay.
just sitting
All
there.
right.
So I feel your pain.
Yeah,
But
it's very painful, but we'll talk
probably need to
about it
send it to a clean
offline.
room.
I just
Yeah.
want to quickly thank you and Tony for being with us today and encourage folks who don't have the acumen to search and get this resource and get yourself connected because if you don't, you'll be left alone. You'll be left behind. Thanks for joining me and thank you for listening. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Thanks, Tone. Appreciate you, brother. Peace, prosperity, progress, and we'll see you next time.